On today's show, is Luka Doncic getting too much blame, not enough blame, or is he being properly blamed by media and fans and everyone for the state of the Dallas Mavericks? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms or on YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, be part of the Raccoon Squad, and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section, is Luka Doncic getting too much blame or not enough blame by media, fans, local media, us, whoever? Let us know. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Basketball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing a basketball franchise? You can do it with the Ultimate GM app. It's super fun. I was literally playing it today. My team would get so much slander because I keep going to the finals and I can't win. Download the game, go to ultimatebasketballgm.com or look it up in the app stores. Get 100% free boost to your franchise and using the promo code Locked On in all caps, one word, Ultimate Basketball GM. Joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, contributor at Mavs.com, the Ultimate GM guru, the one more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
I mean, what a weird past 48 hours. It's the national news cycle has had the Dallas Mavericks, for the basketball, sense, or sports world. It felt like every notification on my phone of every national NBA podcast that I listen to or Substack that I read.
What's wrong with the Mavericks now?
It is some iteration of Mavericks turmoil, Mavericks disaster, pressure mounting, Luka future. I mean, you name it. Everybody is firing off at like a high clip, like an Arnold, 90s, like war movie.
Arnold with Carl Weathers.
With, some big gun ammo. I mean, firing off the hot takes left and right about the Mavs. So that's kind of like been the state I've been. I'm like, do I try to soak up some of this and just see what other people are thinking or saying, and I have a decent amount of trying to figure out. And then, there's obviously local radio stations and stuff firing off their hot takes too.
Yeah.
With air quote sources. And it's been fun. It's been fun to.
Has it? Has it been fun, Isaac?
No, it's not.
No,
it's not. No. It's like, hey, we're the punching bag right now. But yeah.
Yeah, on today's show, we're gonna get into
smoke a pack before this,
I guess I did. I've got to calm myself down somehow. I'm just.
You sound like you have kennel cough.
I've just been smoking and just trying to figure out what's going on with. I've just been introspective the last couple of days.
You and Luka out smoking.
You guys thought that my disheveled hair the other night because of the Mavs. No, it's just my life's.
I saved that picture, by the way.
I'm sure lots of people did. That side by side was shared way too much on Twitter for my liking. Even my boss David Locke shared it. Today we're getting into, is Luka Doncic getting too much blame, not enough blame, or is he being properly blamed? Isaac mentioned it. Everyone is talking about the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, they're talking.
They're talking about the Dallas Mavericks. They're talking about how bad it is. We're talking about how bad it is for the Mavericks to lose those 2 games against the Hornets, to not listen to your coach when he comes out and says that it's dog poop, your effort, and to not have the same effort, like to have the same effort in the next game, to the Luka and Kyrie trade seemingly failing right now, which it is if you can just look at their record. And so I think we start here. What should we blame Luka for? What does Luka get blamed for, or what shouldn't we blame Luka for? Sorry, shouldn't. You threw me off. What shouldn't Luka get blamed for that he is getting blamed for? Because I think he's getting a ton of blame right now. There's a lot of talk, and everything rises and falls on stars. But what shouldn't Luka get blamed for right now? And then later we'll do what he should be.
Okay. Let's answer it that way instead of like what he shouldn't be blamed for that he is getting blamed for. Because I do think a lot of some of these things that he is getting blamed for, not even really blamed for, or let's just say scrutinized, or people are observing about him now. There's a bigger spotlight. Like all the players that come into the NBA, you have this kind of like time period, right? Like you are in the honeymoon phase of you come into the league, you take the league by we're talking about the stars, right? Like come into the league, you take the league by storm. You are the new sensation of the league. You're so much fun.
Not even just a star, like a top 5 star, right? Like a Kevin Durant, a LeBron James. There's not even Russell Westbrook. I wouldn't even put him in that camp. Like you have to be in the top of the top potential top 5 player in the NBA, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, LeBron's the best example of it. Of having all these expectations. Yeah. He comes into the league, the darling. Everybody is, oh my gosh, that first Kings game, and seeing all the highlights. And then it took, a handful of years, even more than a handful of years, for people really to start kind of turning on him some. And I'm not saying people are like turning on Luka, but his negatives, let's just say that, are, there's a brighter light being, shown on them. And so I think a lot of this he should get blamed for, as far as the things that what people are criticizing him for. We'll talk about some of those stuff in a little bit. I don't think he's getting blamed for this a ton by other people, but he shouldn't get blamed for the roster construction. That is not him. Like that is not his thing. Yes. Did they go to him about the Kyrie Irving trade and all of that? Did he have to sign off on that? I think that's one thing, but you can't sit here and blame Luka for all the players on the roster.
I'll take it even a step further. I think there are people that would say Luka asked for Kyrie, and now here they Luka didn't do that, right? Like they came to him at the last minute, was like, hey, do you sign off on this and say that you want him? Not, hey, let's look across the league. Who can we get? And like you pick out one guy and bring the guy in, right? Like it's not like he went and handpicked and said, all right, bring me Kyrie, and then we'll be good. Like he was good with it and wanted it to happen. But it's not like he
did want Kyrie to come to Dallas
But it's not like he demanded. It's not like he went out and did the LeBron like go draft Shabazz Napier, right? Like he didn't do that. But he didn't do that move. You remember that one?
What if he did that with Josh Green?
Then that was a good move.
Or Tyrell Terry. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people are blaming him for that, and how the roster is constructed and all of that stuff. I think you can start looking at how much. We're not there yet. Anyway, you go.
I don't think the defense should get. Like, I don't think Luka should get as much blame for the Mavs' entire defense being bad as it is. Because I think there are so many issues with it. It can't just be put on one person. It can't just be put on one thing. I think when you look at this Dallas Mavericks defense, it's kind of hard. If you're just parachuting in, like we've seen national media parachute in, and some of them did a good job and some of them haven't. But when you just parachute in, you say, well, Luka's a bad defender, so that must be the reason why the Mavericks are bad defensively. He was not a good defender last year. He did step up, though, and wasn't the weak link. But when you look at the difference between what the Mavericks were last year and the minutes they could put together with Maxey and Bullock and Dorian, they could and Jalen Brunson being a responsible defender. And then you turn that into irresponsible defenders, I think, and Christian Wood and Tim Hardaway Jr. and now Jaden Hardy, and like Dorian's gone, and Dinwiddie was a pretty irresponsible defender when he was playing a ton of minutes. Like you change all those guys from last season into this season. These guys, like it just exacerbates the problem so much more. There's that word that I love to misuse, but like it makes it so much worse. And then also Luka's offensive load was so much more this year that yes, he's been bad on defense. The transition defense has been awful, and him complaining to the refs has been awful, and
we're not there yet,
and has caused a lot of their defensive issues. But I don't think he should be getting the full blame for how bad the defense is for the Mavericks. But
yeah, not the full blame. I do think his defense has taken a step down from last year.
Sure.
I think he was a better defender last year. I think he gave a little bit more effort last year compared to this year defensively. I mean, we were defending him pretty hard on the defensive end last year on this podcast, saying, dude, if you're saying Luka's a bad defender, then you're not watching the Mavs.
Yeah.
He isn't a black hole on defense, a negative and all that. This year, he hasn't been a great defender. Like, not been a good defender, and he's getting killed on the back cuts and all of that. So I think but I'm with you though. You can't blame the whole team defense on Luka Doncic. Like, you just can't do that.
No, because there's too many other factors. There's too many other things. And coming up, let's talk about some other things Luka Doncic shouldn't be getting blamed for that he is right now. I think there's some comparison between the Mavericks this year and the Hawks when they made the conference champion, like the conference finals, and then when they didn't the next year. Let's talk about that comparison and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about this new app that is just dominating my phone, and I love it. And it's maddening, but it's fun and it's difficult. It's the Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. It's the coolest game that I found in a long time. And I always thought my favorite part about NBA Live or NBA 2K when I played was making trades, getting to see the guys play on the court, like pairing different guys together and all that. And I'm sure a lot of you are the same way. You can download this app in the App Store. You can go to probasketball.gm.com and you can download this game, and it'll be so fun. You can make trades. You can you like build up your facilities. You sign your coaches. You can train up players. You can change players' positions and move them all around and stuff, and try and figure out this puzzle. You have players' chemistry. There's so many different aspects to it. It's so fun. Again, check it out. Locked On Mavs listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On. That's all caps, one word, Locked On, in the game store. So download the app, go to the game store, redeem that code. And I would recommend running a franchise for like a couple years and then starting a new one and then redeeming the code. That would be my recommendation, because you don't know what you're doing the first time around. You got to try something. Go to probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM is the game. Start your dynasty today.
I was going to add something.
All right, Isaac Harris. Everybody, thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen and being part of the show. We appreciate each and every one of you, especially in these.
I want to give a shout out to Dylan Wood, who was a Mavs fan who tweeted at us and said that they've enjoyed playing that app over watching the Mavs. So you need to incorporate that into the ad read.
If you think you can be a better GM than Nico Harrison, download Ultimate GM and you can prove it. Okay. There's been some comparison between the Mavericks and the Hawks of a couple years ago. The Hawks make the conference finals. The next year, they're disappointing. They win like 43 games, and they're not the same team. What's different between the Mavericks and that team?
The Hawks spent money, and we didn't.
I mean,
in a way, I mean, it goes to show you that, I mean, there was a subset of Mavs fans that were so upset whenever the Mavs didn't spend a bunch of money and land some of these guys that
Danilo.
Like Atlanta went. I mean, there was. I mean, I remember that time of, fans being really upset of like, look at what the Hawks did. They went out and did this and this and this around Trey, and look, it led to a conference finals. The Mavs took an opposite approach, and they ended up in the conference finals too. And now look at them. Are they in the similar spot now? Like, who would you rather have be moving forward, like the Hawks or the Mavs? If you swapped, which roster situation would you rather Luka be on right now, the Hawks or the Mavs, if you could swap them with Trey?
Oh yeah, I mean, right now or that season after they went to the conference finals? Right now,
moving forward.
I think I would go Hawks.
I think I would too.
I think that's pretty easy.
Obviously, I wish it was in Dallas, but it's like, everything considered, I think the situation for Trey right now is better than the situation for Luka.
Yeah, I mean, you just even look at the center situation. They have two centers that are better than every center on the Mavericks, and Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu.
Hey, don't disrespect JaVale McGee.
Sorry.
JaVale McGee.
The combo of John Collins and Bogdanovich is better than any combo of Porzingis and Brunson the last couple of years, right?
I mean, DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, I mean, well, I haven't even mentioned DeJounte Murray at this point, but yeah. And then you have DeAndre Hunter, who's probably a better defender than the Mavericks have had the last couple of years. I mean, we've seen him guard Luka. We can go there if you want to.
Let me say this. I think Jason Kidd as the head coach of the Mavs, I don't think Luka should get blamed for that either. I think it's kind of similar to the Kyrie thing. I think yeah, he was presented with it and he's like, sure, I don't care. I'm Luka. Like, he had to sign off on it.
Of Jason Kidd becoming the head coach when he was hired. Yeah, he was like, oh, that's cool. That'd be cool. It'd be cool to have Jason Kidd as a head coach.
I think he threw lobs, right, for the Nets. Like, no. So, like, I think it was more of that instead of, I don't think, which I don't see a ton of people doing this. I don't think, Luka went with a mandate to the front office saying, so I don't think he should get blamed for the, weirdness of Jason Kidd at times.
I'm back and forth on this part of it though. We've seen Haralabob and we've seen like Zach Lowe talk about the way the Mavericks set up their offense and not running enough Luka and Kyrie pick and rolls, not running enough stuff where Luka has the ball and Kyrie's in the corner, or where they're part of the action. Do you give blame to Luka for that? For the they all just play Luka ball. Like, do you give Luka blame for that, or do you give Jason Kidd blame for that? Because I'm back and forth on it.
I think a lot of it goes for Luka because he wants to play that way, because that's the way he's the most confident. I mean, I think a lot of us that are in your job right now that are listening to this, and if you are,
this is my job.
Yeah, but let's just say there's a lot of things right now that you're confident in your job. Whoever's listening to this, that if you have somebody that you work alongside or maybe works for you on a team or something, or on staff, that you're like, all right, it'd be cool if you actually did this, but man, it's just much easier if I just make it happen. Like, I know it'll be done right if I just go ahead and do it. And then you're sitting back at the end of the week and you're like, I just worked 72 hours and I just did everything, and I know it's done the right way, but that's just not sustainable. Like, you got to be able to delegate more things. I think the question is, has he been able to play with people that he trusts to delegate the projects to? And compared to now he has somebody like Kyrie that he believes in. And it's like, I think Luka is more willing to not play Luka ball if it's Kyrie Irving on the floor. And I think that's what, to put on my Mavs.com hat, I think that's probably the defense of that trade and all of that is they were probably looking at it and it's like, all right, if there's a handful of people around the league that we could have the opportunity to put alongside Luka to allow that he would trust to play off ball with, it's somebody like Kyrie Irving that he respects his greatness on the floor. So yes, I think it's to blame sometimes for him because he does want to play that way. And let me just say this real quick. I think sometimes one of the things get thrown out about Luka, and especially I'm really treading water right here on thin ice here with our all-time Luka fans here. They can take it. I think sometimes it gets thrown at us or thrown at anybody of, hey, Luka went through this. Luka had this type of coach at Real Madrid. Luka had played off ball here.
He can be coached hard.
His life. That was how long ago? Like, people change, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying, like, telling me how Luka was coached or how Luka played when Luka was 17. Compared to when he's an MVP candidate every year in the NBA and he's 4 years into the league, things could have changed, like he might not want to be coached a certain way. He might not like playing a certain way that he liked playing when he was 17 or 18 years old. So I think that gets thrown around a little too much of he did this at Real Madrid whenever he was a teenager, so he can do that now, or he wants to do that now at 24. Just a little too much for me. Sorry, come at me. But
yeah, no, I think that I think we don't know that. And I think that,
yeah,
I'm not sure he's been confident enough in what will happen if he's not handling the ball. Right. And so then I put I put that on Jason Kidd, because then it's about, okay, when have we seen Luka try and play off ball? Like, we've seen these like Tim Hardaway Jr. run pick and rolls, and you're like, what is going on? Why is someone other than Luka or Kyrie
giving up the ball for that?
Handling the ball right now? Or we've seen this season even these weird, like, Dwight, Dorian, Reggie Bullock, like 3-man weave on the one side while Luka and Dinwiddie or Luka and Kyrie are on the other side, and you're like going, what is happening? And so that's when I agree with Luka, and I say, okay, you can't blame that part on Luka. And that's where I'm like, okay, just, you can't blame that. Like the scheme and the way that the team is set up, and that there's not a plan that doesn't force Luka to play this. And I can't blame him because the best offense that the Mavericks can run is to give Luka the ball and get the hell out of the way. It's still been it's the same one. It's still been that way.
And they had a player who probably, if there was ever a time of a player that he's played with that has gotten probably close enough to prove to him that he can let cook and let do their thing after a playoff run, was Jalen Brunson. They let the guy go. So.
Yep.
Explain yourself.
Sorry.
Coming up, let's talk about what Luka should get blamed for, because I think that there are some things that we can. We've mentioned some of them, but we'll talk about that. What Luka should be getting blamed for coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is the number one sportsbook in America. It's also the number one sportsbook for Locked On. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. You can see all kinds of different odds. Ooh, we got the NCAA women's games being played in Dallas.
Tell me Iowa.
Iowa.
Caitlin Clark is like must-see TV right now.
Iowa, this is the Friday game. Iowa is an 11.5 point underdog to South Carolina. South Carolina is no joke.
Yeah, I mean,
that game is going to be wild, and I might even put some money down on Iowa just because you got that one player that could just change it all in Caitlin Clark. That's a wild line right there. The other game, LSU, Virginia. LSU is a 1.5 point favorite, but that Iowa South Carolina game is going to be wild. Go check it out on FanDuel. See what else they have. It's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. All right, Isaac, thanks everybody for making Locked On Mavs your first listen. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us, being part of the show. Let's talk about some things that Luka should get blamed for. We mentioned some of them. The defense. He should get blamed for his defense and complaining to the refs. That has such a degrading effect on the Dallas Mavericks that he doesn't get back. They're playing 4-on-5, and he just lets a basket go on the other end. Yes, of course. There are other issues with the defense, especially if you look at half court when Luka is set. There's other issues with the defense. But that stuff, it just doesn't help. And it just hurts you in so many ways, and it probably brings down the rest of the team. And he's mentioned it. He mentioned to me, I've got to get better at that. That's something I have to take into the offseason and figure out how to get better at.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no way around of justifying. I think even the hardcore Luka truthers with Luka tattoos are admitting, hey, he complains too much. I think
there are people that have the eye on the forearm like Luka does.
I think year one, year two, it was, Luka gets fouled so much. Do you blame him? And it was
Rick Carlisle said that. Rick Carlisle said that yesterday.
Rick Carlisle. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's like right up there with LeBron as far as like narrative stuff. And I'm like, we know.
Playing it in the media and bringing up a narrative that he wants spread.
Yeah. I think Luka deserves some blame for the odd vibes. I think as the best player on the team, Luka needs to be a better leader. And when you are showing up teammates on the floor, they're missing, cuts, they're missing plays, and I'm not talking about just like yelling at it. Like star players yell at people. That's part of it. But it's the looking over to the sideline, the coaching, the bench, like it's mom or dad. And it's like you're telling on your little sister or something. And you're like looking at them and like pointing at your teammate. And it's like, come on, like do something about this type thing. Like you can't, like you're grown men out there. And it's just I just don't think that does anything for and I think a lot of things play into the vibes, but when your star player is like either showing up teammates or staying on the ground, just complaining to refs and not getting back and helping out on defense and that stuff, I think it does contribute to the vibes not being immaculate.
I'll tell you what, I'm pretty sure that's why JaVale McGee was benched so quickly, because I was watching his body language like closely when all that was happening at the beginning of the season. And he would, just like you said, point to the bench, like what is going on, throw his hands up in the air, things like that. And yeah, I think he's got to be a better leader. I'll do the devil's advocate though.
Uh-oh.
isn't this what the best player in the league does? Isn't this what Michael Jordan does? Isn't this what Kobe Bryant did to every single teammate they ever had? To hold them to this standard. And
let me counter though. I think you could do that after you've got some rings.
Didn't Michael Jordan do it before he got a ring? Didn't Kobe do it?
Luka's 24 and doesn't have that cred yet. Like you've made some all the NBA first teams. You're a top 6 player, but yelling at the bench because Reggie Bullock did this or whatever, like you gotta rally the team. I don't think it, let me just say this. I don't think it's a wild thing whenever, we all noticed it whenever a Maxey and other guys are really praising up Kyrie's leadership. He believed in me, he put his arm around me, he's talking to me and all, yeah. I mean, that's just an area that Luka's got to get better in whenever you're a star player about being, a leader like that.
I'm telling you, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, same way.
Okay.
That's my devil's advocate take on that. But I agree. He's got to be a better leader, especially the state of where the Mavericks are. By the way, I went back and looked at LeBron with that 2009 Cavs team. They won 66 games. That's the year when Mike Brown was the coach. Mo Williams was the all-star next to him, which was wild.
Was that when he got swept in the finals?
The rest of the league, no, I think that was before that. This is right before he left. Remember?
Okay.
The rest of the league was so weak that year. The number 4 team in the East was the Hawks with Joe Johnson and Josh Smith. That was the number 4 team in the East that year.
That's wild.
Just such a weak league back then. I'm like, man, LeBron won 66 games, his 5th or 6th season in the league. Shouldn't Luka be doing that same thing now? And I'm like, wow, the league is just so much different. You drop Luka into 2009, I don't know, they're winning 60 games. Dwight Howard and friends won 59 games that season.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think there is a common thread between these things that he should get blamed for. The whining to the refs. Yes. Let's lump in the defense with the sure. You still haven't figured out what peak shape is yet.
Yep.
In the league. So let's combine that with defense, then look at leadership. There's a mindset to this that a disciplined mindset that he will eventually, you hope that eventually he will kind of figure that out. And, he alluded to it the other night, if he's got crap going on off the floor, then that makes sense. It makes sense if he's going through some stuff right now in life that he's not on it, mentally right now, or disciplined as a leader and all of that stuff. And bro, he's on the biggest stage with way more expectations than I'll ever have in my life. And I get frustrated whenever I'm walking through stuff, and it affects everything that I do. So I can't imagine somebody in that spotlight at his age at 24. So I definitely give him a ton of grace with it. And it's just dude, you're going through crap. It's going to affect you. It's part of it. But if we're asking what does he get blamed for right now, he's got to get blamed for that. There's a higher standard on the grand scheme of things of what's wrong with the Mavs. There's a ton of other stuff, front office, head coach stuff, the roster schemes. There's so much stuff. But if we're just looking at Luka, because going back full circle, Luka's been one of the biggest talking points over the past 48 hours from all the national podcasts, ESPN, all the stuff about Luka's future. Look at this, look at that. All the talking points that everybody wants to bring up about Luka all over again. Even all the whining stuff is getting talked about. And it's all right, well, this isn't new stuff. He's complained for years. It's just everybody wants to talk about it right now. He does deserve some blame for that. But these aren't the biggest issues for the Mavericks. They got some way bigger issues, to fix where they're at, to dig out of this hole they're in than Luka, getting some texts.
There's a bigger spotlight on it, because if a lot of these Luka things were different, the team would be better, and we wouldn't be talking about it as much, right? He can cover.
But it's not sustainable though.
No.
Even if he was better, defensively,
that's what happened last year. He was better in all these areas, and they were better, and it wasn't sustainable, right? Because they tried at the beginning of the season with less stuff, and it didn't work.
That's the thing. It's Luka could have 5 techs right now and be a little bit better defensively and not showing up teammates and all this stuff. Would they be a better team? Yes, but that isn't sustainable for his shoulders. Like, you got to build a better system. I mean,
or it wouldn't even make them good enough to where they would be comfortable in the playoffs, right? Like it wouldn't make their team that much better to where you're feeling good. It masks some of these things, but he's been masking a lot of these things for years now.
Yeah. So
there you go. Let us know in the comment section below. Is Luka getting too much blame, not enough blame, or proper blame from media and fans and people like us? And go check out Locked On NBA Game to Game. It's on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel and the podcast feed. It's a daily recap of the NBA games from people like me and Isaac and other people across the network that watch these teams every day. So go check it out. Locked On NBA Game to Game. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.